All right, hey everybody, it's Kr0nus here again with.
Papa Bear, and today we're going to have a little conversation about a book called The New Jim Crow.
Yeah, we'll get into it. Hey, it's me, Rasan. I don't know, man. Huge hole in my,
Yeah, just in
understanding. My fellow Americans.
Papa Bear here.
As long as whatever you're doing doesn't hurt anyone else, I don't care.
Different perspective of what an interesting topic is than I would assume.
This is Balanced Exchange. All right,
Yep.
First things first. Are we gonna? What are you drinking?
So let's see. I've done pretty good this week. Today was actually kind of tough. So there was a barbecue at work, and then I got kind of lucky. I knew the barbecue was coming, but I had to work through kind of part of it. So then I left, went to the post office, and by the time I got over there, all the food was gone and everybody left. So I was like,
You're like, yes, easy out. Yeah.
yeah, like one of the guys I work with was like, "Were you even gonna eat?" Because they know that I, don't eat a lot. So I was like, "Probably not," but just makes it easier. No, it's all put away, so we're good. One less temptation. Then I realized like I needed to get deodorant from the exchange. I was like, okay, went to the exchange, and then it's like all the snacks were calling me. I want some chips or some candy or something. Like, no, I have keto snacks in my lunchbox that I can have while I'm driving home, and I have a 0-calorie energy drink or whatever. I'll drink that on the way home. So
Nice.
I'm fighting it. I'm trying. For breakfast, I had scrambled eggs with avocado scrambled into it. It's good.
It's good.
And
Yeah, it's
then
great choice.
bacon. Yeah. So I stuck to it. I've been pretty keto, so I'm gonna still keep like I've been doing. It's gonna probably be boring for everybody listening to me talk about what I'm drinking. So this is a truly mango lemonade. This is a
Nice.
mango truly.
I had one of those earlier. So yeah. I think that there needs to. We need to have a conversation about like the social stigmas of sticking to a diet and like being legit with it. Because I've had to go through the same thing. Like when I went keto, and even now when I'm like, I fast every day, and it's like even my kid knows. It's like, listen, if it's before 2 o'clock, like I'm not eating anything. Like it's not even just, can you taste this? No, like I'm not eating anything. Like I'll have like a black coffee, but that's about it. Or maybe some gum so my breath doesn't stink. Because if you don't eat a lot of food, your breath smells terrible. So
Yeah.
yeah, there definitely is like things like that where it's like it's
Did you
weird.
notice my coffee cup?
No, sorry, I was looking at the camera. Oh, nice. Yes, infrastructure is sexy,
My infrastructure is sexy coffee cup.
and I've had a lot of conversations about infrastructure lately. Anyway, what I'm drinking before I go off on a fucking tangent again.
So next week would probably be technically a conversation about infrastructure, sort of.
Okay,
Talking about housing.
sounds good. We've had one sort of already, but I'm down to do way more than one because it's a huge
One on
deal.
what?
On infrastructure. Remember we talked about like Texas and like their power
Yeah.
and stuff like that, but I'm down to keep talking about it because.
So it'll be specifically about housing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
I am
Okay, we'll have a
drinking.
guess.
I'm drinking.
What are you drinking?
Soju.
Oh.
And this is from Costco. What? I love Costco, by the way.
That's where I got my Trulies.
Yeah, that's where I got my Trulies too. And like, I talked about the other day, but Costco's alcohol is so ridiculous. You can buy 1.5 liters of vodka, enough to kill pretty much anybody in one sitting, for $13.
Yep.
I have no idea how that's.
I feel like you said that exact line before. Like,
Yeah.
basically, it's cheaper to kill someone with alcohol than it would be to buy a bullet right now.
Yeah, like for real, it really is. It's ridiculous. Anyway,
At least in California.
this is Sunhari. It's the citron one. It's the basically lemon, and it's like 12% alcohol, but it's basically a beer bottle, and I'm drinking that out of my Run the Jewels cup here, and then I also have like a backup beer. It's a Stone Vengeful Spirit IPA. So yeah.
So at this point in watching our videos, you may or may not know that I am an active duty United States Marine. And I've been doing this for 20 plus years, so I know that it's really important for me to make sure to get this out there. If it's your first time watching this, please stick around and make sure you understand the disclaimer. If you've watched a whole lot of our episodes so far, feel free to go ahead and jump ahead to the new content. So what I need to talk about today is that I am not authorized and have no way of being approved to speak on behalf of the Marine Corps. So any opinion that I give or any concept that I discuss today is the position and the opinion of just me, myself, just a man who has a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in leadership and organizational management, and has spent my whole life looking at government structures and social contracts and how these things are supposed to work, what the philosophies and things behind them are, and read a lot of books on that kind of stuff. And it's definitely one of my personal and key passions. And so when you hear me maybe give a position or a concept on something, that is only my own position. I am not a public affairs officer for the Marine Corps. I am in no way giving what the Marine Corps' official position on anything would be. And honestly, a lot of the topics we're going to cover here, I'm pretty sure the Marine Corps doesn't have a particular position on. So if you do have any questions about what the Marine Corps' policy on certain things could be, you can definitely research that and find those out, or leave a comment or send us a message if you can get a hold of us somehow, and we can maybe be able to answer those questions for you. So with that said, let's get you back to this week's content.
All right, what are you reading, man?
So I am reading a book called The Rise of Superman.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, and it's a book about. It primarily focuses on like action sports or extreme sports athletes, and how over the last really probably 30 years, he usually says like several decades, they've like really focusing in on them as the center point of the study of flow, have realized that they have always basically been cracking, and like not cracking, like hacking the flow concept where. All of the foundational things you need are in such a high level when you're doing extreme sports stuff like that you have to be in flow or you won't survive.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. And so they talk about Danny Way. It was probably one of my favorite stories when he did his mega ramp launch over the Great Wall of China. Have you seen that?
No, I was thinking of a different guy, the guy who fell from fucking doing a mega ramp. And he went up like a half pipe and like got really fucked up. Different guy. So
ended up landing on the ground, right?
Yeah, he got fucked up bad. Sorry.
That's still Danny Way.
Yeah.
Same dude.
Oh, same dude? Yeah, that's why I said the name sounds familiar. Holy shit.
Yeah.
All right. That guy's a fucking...
So he did that event 4 days after he jumped over the Great Wall of China.
Holy shit. So he's probably high on life.
He's extremely high on life. He's that kind of guy. So he was like up on top of it, just testing how it was like, I'm going to give it a test run. And just went, and it was too short, like it was not built right. He literally ran straight into the wall.
Oh shit!
And then he like completely broke his. He sprained his ankle, broke his like push foot, like his steering foot, like injured his shoulder, and like got up and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna take you to the hospital." He's like, "No, hold on, I'm good."
It's good enough. Yeah.
Shook it off a little. Goes back up there, jumped it. Like, nailed it. You're like, most people couldn't do that on a good day.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that broken? Then he did it 4 more times.
Jesus Christ.
So then he gets on a plane and he flies to California where the X Games are going, where that mega ramp event you watched or saw the video of was like the center point of it. And then he did awesome. And then he landed on the ground at a different effect. So like
he
one
landed.
Time yeah. He went up, but like wasn't going to come back down in the ramp. Managed to somehow adjust himself in the air and land on his feet.
Yeah.
On the flat of the ground, way, way, way off from where he was supposed to land. And so like the extreme stuff that he did, and he still got second on that. Bob Burnquist beat him because he was able to be like more in sync with his flow. Like that's all it was. Bob knew. He's like, they both knew that that's really what they were doing. And I was looking into it, and I'm finally getting to a point where it starts talking about how you can take those concepts and strategies and everything that they've learned from studying these extreme athletes and like apply it to more basic things. Like we talk about getting into flow when you're just trying to like lose yourself in a project and not necessarily think about everything around you. And if you can focus in, you can kind of tune out the world, which is kind of an important part. They work go hand in hand, but you need to tune out the world to get into flow. But then once you're in it, you kind of can keep it tuned out.
Yeah.
So creativity for me, and we talked about Lego for a lot of, at least the veterans that are in like my community with Lego stuff, that it is therapeutic, and helps deal with your stress and helps you like kind of get away from it all, focus in for a little bit, be in a cool place, enjoy yourself. All of the neurochemical part of it is like, yeah, it does feel good when you get in that place, and it's nice to feel good. So.
Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons why I started taking nootropics. I would like up my dosage for nootropics just to go to jiu-jitsu, so I can get into the flow state faster and stay into it like longer. I think that definitely like made me way better at jiu-jitsu as an aging athlete rolling with young people. It's hard because like your brain doesn't work as good as you get older. But nootropics definitely helped me out, like getting into the flow. And it's like my body just knew what the fuck to do. So.
Well, in the book I read before this was Limitless, and one of the things that is a key indicator of ending up with Alzheimer's or any of the other like degenerative diseases for your brain is how much of your attitude and your mentality about continuing to learn. Like as long as you strive to learn and keep trying to learn new things, it actually significantly reduces the risk of ending up with some kind of degenerative disease, because you're working it out, right? You keep working out, you're going to stay physically in shape. Keep working on your brain, you're going to stay mentally in shape. Yeah,
your brain is a muscle, so it's a muscle, but yeah.
It's way more like a muscle than it is like anything else. So in the pre-show, you talked a little bit about your flow events. What were those ones that you said were like your flow events?
Yeah, so my flow event, the main one for me is doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, only because it's a high degree of difficulty, and it has like a really strong physical aspect. And so for me, the main way that I de-stress and like really get rid of like all my like mental issues is through like some sort of physical activity. And jiu-jitsu is like the number one thing that like de-stresses me. But now, because of COVID, I can't really rely on jiu-jitsu anymore, like that much anymore. And I've had to rely on using a Peloton bike. And to be honest with you, I don't fucking like cycling. Like, I don't. But it's a challenge because I kind of suck at it. So I try to latch on to that. I'm like, listen, you kind of suck at it. Let's get better at it and focus on that instead of like focusing on the fact that you're just grinding for like 30 minutes to an hour or more on this one thing as like this person talks to you. I get out of that headspace and just like, listen, try to get into the flow state, because there's times where like I'm riding and I know I'm going to hit a wall. Like if I'm doing like an hour-long ride, 45 minutes in, the wall's coming every single time. Yeah. So, and I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to prepare for it. And I try to get into the flow state right around that 45-minute mark, or hopefully before that. But I know around the 45-minute mark, I need to be in some sort of flow state. So I have to think about that. Like, hey, just stop thinking about the grind and just start trying to enjoy yourself on this bike, and just do it, Especially when it comes to like endurance rides. Because endurance rides, they're not crazy fast, but they're mentally enduring, because for me, riding at about like between 20 and 22 miles per hour is like my endurance pace. And if you do that for a long period of time, for like an hour, that's like a lot of doing the same thing. Like, and it's rough.
So, to me, one thing I keyed in on when you talked about the two different ones was that you felt way more like strongly in flow when you were doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So big part of it to me, just learning about this right now, what I thought of was it's probably because of like the inherent sense of danger, right? So you have a far more obvious and like well-identified threat kind of concept going, which immediately triggers you into flow. Like, and you jump in and you jump in deep, because flow is a primal concept for us, right? So it's a thing that allowed us to survive better. It allows us to cut everything else out and super focus in on those things that we have to do to survive. And so the difference between those two for me was that like you're able to snap right into it with that, because you're looking directly at the person who is that threat. You're like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And just kick that thing in. But then with exertion and the version that comes from the Peloton is more like the runner's high version that they talk about, where after a certain amount of time, your body starts breaking, and you're like, okay, I have to mentally shut some things down to be able to continue to go. One last thing was the way you described it was almost perfect to the 4 parts. So there are 4 stages to actually being in flow. So there's the struggle, which is like preparing for it. So with jiu-jitsu, it's all the work you do ahead of like an actual grapple, right? Like an actual, what'd you call it?
Rolling.
What? Rolling.
Rolling, yeah. It's like sparring.
Yeah, an actual roll with another opponent.
Yeah.
It's all the work up to that point. It's like you preparing yourself mentally. It's you training. It's you working on that. Especially since you're probably going to do warm-ups. You're going to do all this stuff getting yourself mentally ready for it. So there's supposed to be a stage in between, and what a lot of us do is we mess that up. So the struggle is something, especially like I think Marines we're good at. We're good at struggling.
Yeah, we are.
So you're good at being able to be like, look, this is the struggle. I get it. It's going to be tough. No problem. So the next phase, though, is supposed to be a release. So you're supposed to, like, break yourself from that struggle. You're supposed to create this mental freedom gap sort of between it where you laugh a little or, like, make yourself feel happy, get yourself into, like, a I feel good spot. Like, and you mentioned that when you were doing something, you touched it, like, I just got to stop worrying about the struggle. I got to just focus in on getting ready because I know I'm about to hit that wall. And that right there, you're letting yourself let go of that struggle, like that little mental piece.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when we are thinking about like, I got to do this thing, we don't let ourselves release from it first so that we can flow in. And then the third stage is flow itself. That's okay. You're ready to do it and you do it and you enter flow. But then afterwards, you also need recovery. So it causes you to cut out other things. You turn off a lot of neurochemicals. You amp up a bunch of other ones. Your body can only handle that for so long. And then you need to allow your body to like resettle itself.
Yeah.
A lot of people will try to stay in flow for too long and hurt themselves. So, yeah, it's not. I would imagine in jiu-jitsu, because I know when I was doing martial arts, like we didn't do the release portion very well. Like having an opportunity to go from the struggle, the hard workout, the warm out, the self-discipline piece, go straight into, the training with an opponent without doing some kind of a mental break in between.
Yeah, so the mental break in between, I think for me and probably most people that are doing jiu-jitsu is like after you're done rolling, is like talking to people that you rolled with, because at some point you become like, if you're new at jiu-jitsu, this probably doesn't happen because you don't know your training partners well enough to like really like talk to them. But like once you have been at a gym for a while, like you get to talk to them afterwards, and even if you don't, you get to have the decompression of when you're, if you go back to like your house, if you're driving home or walking home or whatever, you replay all this stuff in your head of like, how could I have been better at this? Or, what did this person do to beat me? Or what did I do great at this? And for me, that's like my decompression part. It's almost like, it's like a post-workout high on the way home. Like I rarely, there's only like maybe one occasion where I did jiu-jitsu and I felt bad on the way home. Maybe once. And I think that was likely because of like a lot of pain. Because I really messed up my neck. I had to go to the ER like afterwards. So, but yeah, that was bad. But yeah, like getting into the flow state and like coming out of it, it's like I think you need self-reflection time, and I think that's what people they might sort of skip that part.
Well, the recovery will happen naturally if we have time. And I think, so there's also, most of the time, after flow, there's like the afterglow. A lot of people call it. So like, you keep feeling good for a good while afterward, which is why people seek, like that's why thrill seekers keep doing what they're doing, because they enter flow and survive it, and then you're like, I want to go back there. That was great. But like, what we don't do is that if we want to get efficient at it, like, it can be quick to create that mental release part, the first part, like between the prep and the actual flow, you need like a brain break sort of thing.
I see.
Yeah, to separate yourself from the struggle part to actually be ready to allow yourself to get into flow. So like, do you know who Shane McConkey is?
That sounds vaguely familiar. Was it in the military?
He's like, no, he's this super crazy extreme skier. He was the first to develop ski basing. Do you know what ski basing is?
Is that where you ski and jump off a goddamn mountain with a parachute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the first guy to invent that whole concept.
Yeah.
So then he's been doing it for years, and this female skier starts thinking that she would like to do the same thing. She'd like to be the first woman to ski base, no one has done it, right? So she starts training with Shane, and they do a lot of because she skied her ass off. She's already done the extreme skiing stuff. So he started training her for parachuting, and then base jumping, and then was ready to finally do her first full set, right? Ski to base jump, right? And so she's been doing the struggle. She's been prepping. So she's up there ready to go. He sets off fireworks. Sets off these fireworks, and the fireworks explode in the air, and down come these little parachutists, like that he had put in the fireworks on fire, right? So it gets her laughing, like, what the? They're on fire too, so it's like, that's not even a good sign, man.
Yeah.
So she's laughing, and like all that stress, all the work, like, okay, I'm ready. I know that I'm ready. I worked myself all up to here. That laugh got her to this place where, and then she nailed it. Crushed it the first try.
Nice.
First time she's ever been able to. Was able to enter flow like immediately, and it looked back through it, and we're like, that was probably that release moment. You know, he set that up knowing she needed that because he's just been good at it. He does it naturally. He just has been doing it for so long. He's kind of learned inherently the things he has to do, and so he knows how to teach people how to do it. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think the flow state is such an excellent thing for human beings to do. It's like probably, maybe I'll be in trouble for saying this. I don't care. It's pretty close to like having sex. If you're not used to flow state, like it's super close to having sex. So especially like all the stages.
He's hinted at it that basically it absolutely is a flow state in most cases. Like,
yeah.
You enter a flow state as a part of that if you're doing it right.
Yeah. If you're not too awkward, you'd be all right.
All right. Yeah, moving on. What are you reading?
I've read a couple of books since we last had the podcast. Actually, within like the past 7 days, I've finished off like 3 books. And I just started a new one today. I finished one today, and I picked up a new one today. But the first one I want to talk about is Can't Hurt Me. It's the David Goggins book, which is an excellent... Have you read that one yet? Oh, you got to read it, man. So your next book, Can't Hurt Me, and it's by David Goggins. He's the guy who was... have you heard of David Goggins at all?
Yeah, I
probably
have.
have. Yeah. So he was a Navy SEAL, and he's famously known for going through Hell Week 3 times in a year to become a Navy SEAL. Basically, he was... he joined the Air Force to be a PJ. Didn't make it. He ended up being like, I think it was TAC P or something like that, which is still pretty good. But he got out of being in the Air Force, ended up being a fat guy, like spraying for cockroaches. He was like 300 plus pounds. He was almost 300 pounds, spraying for cockroaches at like restaurants. And then one day he sat down after like eating a bunch of like bullshit food, and he saw a video of the Navy SEALs. Like it was like a 30-minute video of like some class in the Navy SEALs. He's like, you know what? I want to do that. And so he went to all his recruiters, and they're like, okay. First of all, when they saw him, most of the recruiters were like, you're too fat, man. There's no way we can let you in. And you're in the Air Force. Get the fuck out of here. He found one guy who was a new Navy recruiter, and he was like, all right, you got to lose 106 pounds in 3 months if you want to make the next class. And you have to, and he was like, he even calls himself dumb because he cheated throughout all of high school to pass high school. He barely passed the ASVAB test. He failed I think it was the first, at least the first time. And they were like, you need to raise your ASVAB score to like join, to be an actual Navy SEAL. And so for 3 months, you know, he had to, first of all, get smart enough to raise his ASVAB score and lose 106 pounds. And he went through all this crazy medical issues and shit like that. And he actually, when he actually became a Navy SEAL, he did it on broken legs. He literally taped up his legs to complete buds. He would put socks on, tape up the socks, put more socks on, tape up those socks, and more socks on top of that to make sure, because he had a bunch of stress fractures in his legs, to keep his legs together to pass buds. And that's not even the craziest thing that wasn't even the most painful or craziest thing that he's done, because he became like an ultra marathoner and an ultra distance he's like an ultra distance for triathlons and stuff like that. He's an amazing human being, and like listening to his whole story, it's a really good book. Some of his stuff that he talks about are like things that I've been through growing up, and it's just like hearing the way that he dealt with these issues and like being brutally honest with himself is like really refreshing. And I think that most people, they don't like, because he curses kind of a lot, which obviously I don't give a fuck, but yeah, but he's just like, there's times where he's failed in his life, and he's like, yeah, I failed, but I got back on the horse and like I got it done, because like same thing with like he wanted to get like the pull-up world record. He failed at it twice. On the third try he got it, but he tells you exactly why he failed on the first two attempts, and how he failed, trying to become a Navy SEAL, and how he failed at trying to get into Delta Force. So he was, not only was this dude Navy SEAL, he also passed Ranger School, and he went to Delta Force school twice. So it's just like his mind is amazing, and like how not to be broken and how to deal with defeat and like really understanding like your actual faults. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm talking to like instructors and students, trying to get them to wrap their head around like having the right mindset about learning and becoming better. Like one of my favorite quotes to use is, the only person who's never failed at something is someone who never tried anything new.
Yep.
It's an Einstein quote. So it's one of those ones that like I've also read that people say it's misquoted for being said by Einstein. I don't know. Either way,
it's a good quote.
Yeah. It's not, and it's right? This is 100% true. If you try something new, it's okay if you fail.
Yeah.
The issue is just if you give up.
Yeah, and that's what most people don't understand. It's just like they try something once and then they just give up. Like I suck at a lot of stuff. I really do. Like I said before on the podcast, I suck at cycling. My jiu-jitsu, I'm not a world champion at jiu-jitsu, but I just keep coming. So I like it because it defeats me, and I enjoy it. I don't care if it beats me or somebody else beats me or whatever. Like I just keep doing it because it's good for me.
I also feel like that guy might be fairly familiar with the flow state.
Yes, especially when you're doing like an ultra, like when you have to run like 100 miles plus miles. He did the bad water, so you know what that is, right?
Isn't that it's a New Mexico one, isn't it?
Well, it's in Death Valley, so that's the one where it's like I think it's 139 miles in the summertime in Death Valley, and it starts off flat, and then the end of it is like it's all incline. And it obviously takes more than a day to complete because nobody can run 100 miles in a day. Well, people can. But it's 130 miles on an incline in the middle of summer. And that whole story, like how he got to get to, because you have to apply to go to do bad water. And that whole story, I'm not even going to mention like what he had to do to get to that, but it's an insane story. Really insane. On like how far you can push your body. Oh, and then the other books I listened to was Level Up or Die, which is a lit RPG book that was free on Audible, so I picked it up, listened to it. It was pretty good. And I just started the first book of The Wheel of Time. It's called The Eye of the World. So it's going to take me basically forever to finish all the books.
Was that one free for September, so it's new free this month?
Level Up or Die, I think it was free a couple of months ago. I put it in the queue and I just didn't read it or didn't listen to it for a while. So it might still be free, I have no idea.
Yeah, because usually there's a couple books that are free each month in a lot of different categories. So it's like, I usually try to look at that list and be like, that sounds interesting. That sounds interesting. And for those months where I'm cranked through a couple fast, I'm like, oh man, I need something to read. Oh, I got those ones in the queue, kind of like you did. Like, let me check that out.
Yeah, it was weird to see a lit RPG book on the free side. I was like, all right, let's do it.
So you know who wrote the last book of The Wheel of Time?
Wasn't it Brandon Sanderson?
It was Brandon Sanderson. So you're already starting to like, you're going to have stuff come together. Like, oh.
Because I thought
you really got your breakthrough.
Well, yeah, because when I first looked up the book, I saw that Brandon Sanderson was tied to it. But then when I started this book, it was Robert Jordan. Yeah. So I was like, where is Brandon Sanderson? So I guess this is the last book.
So the first like 11,
11,
10 or 11 were all Robert Jordan. I told you, you're in for a fight now.
Yeah,
You
it's fine.
took on a big battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Robert Jordan wrote all of them. He wrote about a third of the final one before he passed. And so then they were trying to figure out how to do it, who to have finish it. They had all his notes, all of the beats were laid out. Someone just needed to write it. And Sanderson had written 2 or 3 books, and they felt like his style was the right style to match with Jordan's, and so he got hired to finish it up.
Nice.
And that was really where his name, like, okay, boop, him, you are now like someone people recognize their name, and then he just starts cranking out books.
I mean, that's literally one of the main reasons why I'm listening to the book. It's because I saw that he was tagged to it. I was like, all right, this dude's a good writer, so let's go.
Yeah. Jordan is from an era where a lot of those books are very similar. They're very Lord of the Rings, Shannara, like they're all
Shannara Chronicles. Yeah.
similar stuff. So it's great. I still love all of it, but it's looking back, I start reading Robert Jordan again all the time because I've read them all, and I'm like, go to read it again. I'm like, this again? Nah, I'm good.
Well, it's kind of like I'm listening to it, and it's kind of quote unquote old timey, which is fine.
Yep.
But it's just I'm still gonna enjoy the books. I can already tell I'm gonna enjoy the books, but it's like it's from a different era than what I'm because like if you're listening to the vast majority of my consumption of books is lit RPGs or some serious like civil rights shit,
Right.
which is all a lot of it's current, so the writing style is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I'll just take it back to like when I was listening to what's the guy's name? Jesus Christ, the guy that did iRobot.
We were just talking about it.
Forget his name now. He's one of my favorite authors.
L. Ron Hubbard? No.
No. He didn't create a religion. Somebody's gonna be mad listening to this. Like, why don't you know his name right now? Isaac Asimov. Jesus Christ. There we go. Isaac Asimov.
We're both like, Asimov.
Yeah. Asimov has an old-timey feel to all of his books, but it's fine. It's classic.
I had, in my creative writing course, I actually had an assignment where we had to take an Asimov writing and then write it with a modern voice.
Oh,
like
nice.
a new creative, writing voice. I really enjoyed that project. Like, that was a piece of work that I wouldn't say I was proud of, because like I definitely like have grown as a writer since then, but like it was still fun. It was definitely enjoyable. Like, okay, how would we deal with this same scene, scenario, concept? What words would we use? How would we rewrite the concept into today's like creative writing? It was fun.
Yeah. Hold on. I gotta look real quick. There was like a book I was listening to. It was The Heir of Navron, which also I finished in the past at least 2 weeks. It was by Michael J. Sullivan, and like one of the words that they used was niggardly, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I was like, I haven't heard this word in like a long time. It's like one of those things like if you want to modernize a writing style, is like probably change certain words. You know what I mean? I was just like, man. So that probably goes, the way you're talking about, like modernizing a writing style.
Yeah.
Certain words you're probably not going to use anymore.
Yeah, not even just words too, but like tone and all the other stuff that goes along with it. It was fun. But like, Fortnite, right? Even though it's a video game now, like that's not a word people use.
No.
Most people don't even know what it means now. I saw it on a TV. We were watching. Cindy is watching I Survived. And on one of those, it said a fortnight later. I was like,
yeah, nobody's familiar with that.
No one knows what the hell it is, man.
Is it 40 days? I forget how many days it is.
2 weeks.
Is it 2 weeks? Okay, yeah, I can't remember.
But it's like nobody uses that term anymore.
All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this podcast. So we're almost an hour in. We have not talked about the actual subject of this podcast.
Yeah, so it's sometimes we I think that's part of what this show is set up to do. We have our intro discussions, and then we have the topic. So I guess we start with a disclaimer.
Yes, it'll come in now.
And then I guess we're back. Okay, so how do we want to start this?
Well, how do you want to start? Because you recently read the book.
I did. I just read it, and did I already explain to you like me coming to grips with white privilege concept?
No, but actually, I had to come to grips with the same thing, and it's weird to say that as a black guy. So, tell me your experience.
So, I got close enough with another Marine chief warrant officer, like same rank as me, who's black, and finally was like had the courage to ask the question, right? And so that's where I think a part of what we're trying to do is show that we need to have the courage as members of society to have the conversations that maybe are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And read things that maybe you might not have thought you should read or wanted to read, whether you should or shouldn't read it, that you definitely didn't want to read. And we were talking pre-show about, like, there's a book I'm going to probably read that I'm like, I don't want to read this book. Because the point of view of it, I already know up front, I don't agree with 90% of what the whole foundation of this book is. But I should read it because I want to hear what their perspective is. And maybe it'll shift something for me. Some small piece of it would make me I'll think about that in a different way now, you know? So I finally sat down and asked him, I was like, so can we talk about this? Because this is the way I've seen it. This is the way I understand it. And I feel like I heard enough things and seen enough things now that I think maybe I'm misunderstanding it. And we were in Hawaii. We were there for an exercise event that we were doing reviews at to be able to do some write-ups on. And we were just sat on some bleachers because these guys had all finished their training piece. Marines were leaving. We were waiting for some of the civilians who were like closing down some systems. We're just waiting so we could get ready to go back and change and go to dinner. And so I asked, I was like, so what I perceive it to be is that there's an assumption that I get something or that I have the ability to, you know, be more likely to go great places because I'm white, right? Like that I'm privileged, that I get an advantage specifically because of being white. And we talk about our histories, my history, and like I spent significant parts of my, you know, teenage years wondering where I was going to eat tonight, whether I going to have somewhere to sleep under a roof. I slept under bridges in Portland, Oregon at skate parks because I had nowhere to go sleep that night. And I say nowhere, like a lot of the nights that I did have somewhere to sleep, I stayed with friends, but you feel like you overstay that welcome at some point. You're like, I need to stay somewhere else for a day or two before I feel like I should ask them to stay there again. And so part of my head space was, there's no way that I was privileged just because I was white if I had to go through that crap. And he helped me understand, like, it's not really that. It's that I could do those things and not be worried that I was going to immediately be arrested by a cop just because I was there doing it.
Yeah.
That I was immediately going to be looked at a certain way or treated a certain way because I wasn't white. It's not about being given anything. It's about not being taken away from because you're not white. And it's the privilege of like being allowed to just be treated like a human. Like I would think all people are supposed to be treated. So that's where I think for me it was hard to like, wait, that's not how other people think. There's not just like everyone should be treated fairly and have everything the same and have all these opportunities. And then your individual actions prove you worth it or not worth it. That there's a significant portion of people who have to go through life every single day being ready to be treated differently. And I was like, I did not even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
That was not at all how I understood it. And I was like, oh my God, dude, that's terrible.
Yeah, it took me a while to understand as well. It's weird because, you know, I'm black. Obviously, all y'all can see that. One thing I'll want to bring up, though, is that that needs to be said is that, you know, Papa Bear, he's perceived as white.
Yeah.
But he's not.
No.
So that's like, if you can pass as white in America, you got the golden stamp. You know what I mean? You're not going to say you're going to be good to go, but you're going to avoid a lot of issues that if you were not perceived as white, that you will probably hit at some point in your life. And even before, like if you look at the history of America, if you were like Italian or Irish or whatever, where they can tell just by your accent that you weren't, an American, you would hit some of the same issues, but just wouldn't be as extreme. You know what I mean? So when people try to
Yeah.
bring up, you're like, oh, well, we had black slaves, but oh, we had indentured servants that were, Italian or Irish. Okay, so first of all, indentured servitude, you can pay off your debt, and you can become free again. So if you're a slave, you can't do that. Like that option is literally not there.
Right. Well, and New Jim Crow goes into how they actually used that as a way to continue to actually like separate those groups and like reinforce that and like actually work towards stopping indentured servitude to ensure that there was a group of people who were close enough to the bottom end to want to make sure that they weren't the bottom.
Yeah, and that trend still happens today. Like if you see
Yes.
the way that they pit poor white Americans towards poor minority Americans, like it's very prevalent, and it's like you guys are fighting for like the least amount of resources
Yeah.
that you should be getting together for and like advocating for each other to get better resources. But instead, they make us fight with each other for like these dwindling resources that they fucked us out of for like the past hundreds of years, but they'll never mention that to any of us.
No, yeah, because then you'd have an uprising of the majority of the population, the poorest, saying instead of looking at those who they want to make sure keep them from being in a worse position, going, why do you have all of this stuff? And there's this many of us with nothing, and if you literally gave up like 1% of what you have to all of us, we would never have to worry about it again. Like,
Yeah,
what are we doing?
and that's a problem that they're not going to talk about because they know that if we all came together and like we're actually advocating for the same things, so we can all have equal rights and equal like real equality, then things would get better for everybody, but it would also take away from a little bit of a small percentage from the people that are actually wealthy. Because the people that are wealthy are actually they're paying less of their share into our society than people that are poor. But they will never talk about that. And at the same time, they will trump up all these, billionaire hero worship for these people. Like they will make people that are poor, brown, white, whatever, they do their hardest to make us believe that we can all get to be a billionaire someday. If you just work towards the quote unquote American dream, you can become that billionaire. But the likelihood of you becoming a billionaire, especially if you're black, like, or brown, or if you're a minority whatsoever in America, it is very unlikely. Very unlikely. But they teach us all that, you can, even if you're a poor white kid, it's very unlikely that you're going to become a billionaire.
Yeah, and so like those exceptional individuals, and specifically called out is like, whoa, look, Barack Obama was president of the United States. So if that can happen, right, then anybody can. But it's like that exceptional character that actually helps to reinforce the system. So it'd be like, no one's going to talk about how it's being controlled right now, and because you can just point and say, oh, but look, see, anybody can. And instead of making it about, explicitly saying it's about race, instead it has to be subtle, it has to be implied, it has to be colorblind is what they keep using as the term in the book, right? So you never mention that it's about race. You can't mention that it's about the color of someone's skin, but you just create rules that are enforced in a way that ensure that it is that. And that's kind of the way the book is going about saying how we're controlling, how we still have a system of specific racial control, I guess is the best way to put it, because it's not, I guess there is still a pretty significant effort for segregation, but not explicitly, I guess. That's
Yeah, it's not explicitly, but at this point in time, it doesn't really need to be because all the damage has been done.
Yep.
It's already been ingrained into our society, and what am I talking about? I'm talking about specifically redlining. So we had federal and local governments that mandated redlining, which means that there was a place for minorities to live and places for white people to live. And we literally could not buy land or home or land in certain areas of any city anywhere if you had the wrong skin tone. And if you go into like racial, the next book you should probably read a fun book next, definitely. But after a fun book or two, read The Color of Law, because that goes into redlining in very specific detail.
Okay, and I think we have talked about it before. I haven't added it. I'm gonna do it right now.
Yeah, because it'll make people better understand, like, well, why don't black people have money? Why do they live in ghettos? This specifically explains why black people specifically live in ghettos, because we couldn't buy a home anywhere else.
That's Richard Rothstein.
Yes, and what I like about this book, one thing I didn't like about the new Jim Crow, well, maybe I didn't. Not that I didn't like it. I don't remember after reading it that there were any sort of solution suggestions at the end of the book.
So there were, and
there were okay.
What is, and I think we should go over them. I do know some of them, and some of them are
there were, yeah,
variations or modifications to update them, because I think so. The book came out in 2007.
Yeah.
And Barack Obama had been elected, so like no ability at that time when the first like primary publishing came out to look at the actual presidency and then evaluate afterwards.
Yeah.
But there was a new forward in the version that I listened to, which was like a 10-year edition, and that was nice. So she's like, here's some of the updates to stuff, and yeah, it didn't change anything, and you could tell the frustration was there. Like, there was hope, but people are still being incarcerated for drug charges, specifically the preponderance of those being people of color, and while he was able to make it so that it closed the gap of disparity between the mandatory minimums for crack cocaine and powdered cocaine, which chemically and like as far as actual drug effect are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Is punished. It was 100 times worse when the book was originally written, and now is only 10 times worse.
Yeah, which is it's still nonsense. Like it's
right.
It's still it should be. First of all, you know me. The war on drugs should end.
All of it. Yeah.
All of it. Like I don't care.
She says specifically, this was one of the things I was like, says that there has to be like any individual legislative or political action taken to fix the problem will not work if we don't have like a societal, cultural understanding change, like how we treat each other generally. Like it won't fix it because we'll find a different way, the same way we did with Jim Crow. It might take 20 years, but somehow we'll still end up back where we are if we don't fix that core component, right? And I get that. I totally agree. Long-term solution requires us to have this conversation and get society to a point where we're not colorblind, that we actually care about each other and for our culture and for our differences and respect each other, but treat each other with respect as humans, not regardless of it, like blind to it, but understanding, right? But this, me, like, and no, there is absolutely legislative and actionable and like legal and political things that we can do now to like fix a huge. So what do you want me to do? You want me to wait 20 years while dudes just rot in prison? How about we like end the drug war and remove felonies for minor drug possession charges, and that stuff is just expunged and gone, and suddenly the voting population jumps by like 15%.
And that's the problem. that you're highlighting the actual problem
I know.
is because the reason why that most people do not want to end the drug war is because it would change the dynamics of who is voting in America. Because the vast majority of people that are in jail for minor drug crimes are minorities, and if they had a chance to vote, they would vote to better themselves, just like you vote to better yourself. Like, why would you vote for something that you knew was going to put you in jail? You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't do that, right? That's common sense. But I think people they don't get that, and the problem with like most people that are for the drug war and for like just throwing people in jail, oh they're druggies, blah 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 blah. Honestly, they're why do you care? Listen, if the problem is, oh, what if somebody gets high and beats somebody up or shoots them? We already have laws for that. We have
Yes.
laws for murder, assault, battery, all those things. So apply those laws when they commit those crimes. And if they need to go to jail for assaulting somebody or killing somebody, then yeah, then that needs to be done. But when it comes to just like I just got high,
Yeah.
like I don't. That's none of your business. People are high all the time. All the time. People are,
Yeah.
especially right now with the opiate epidemic. Like they're just legally high all the time, but nobody seems to care.
I was really tempted to ask my brother to be on this episode, and I actually just messaged him again because I'm curious if he would join us for a little while. The problem is I want to try to make it that our guest is someone who, um, like, can at least have the whole conversation. He hasn't read the book, so that's not fair. So we couldn't talk to him about that. But like this part of it bothers me because he and I fight about this all the time. Like, I don't see any reason to punish someone for personal drug use as a crime on its own, right? Like you just talked about, there are other things. If they take actions or do things or neglect or whatever, just charge them for that. Should you operate heavy equipment or a vehicle? No, right?
No.
If you're intoxicated, that's still a thing. What drug that is, like, if we get pulled over and have an alcohol content over a legal limit while driving, I don't get a ticket or my license taken away for DUI and then also go to prison for drinking alcohol because it's legal, right?
Yeah, you just go to jail for the DUI. If you go to jail for the DUI. Yeah.
Just the action you took that you shouldn't have taken while you were intoxicated. Like that same exact law should still apply. But to him, he's like, the act of taking drugs is inherently bad, and we should not let it.
But we all this the problem that I have with that mindset is if you talk about drugs, everybody in America takes some sort of drug. Almost everybody. There's probably
Yeah, not
some
everybody.
people that don't take anything. That don't even drink coffee.
Mormons.
What's up?
Mormons.
Yeah, Mormons. I mean, even them. I mean, they still have low. They probably still drink coffee, right? There's caffeine in that shit.
No caffeine.
Not even caffeine. Okay.
No sodas. No nothing.
Yeah, it's just. But for most people, like you take some sort of drug, and it happens to be legal, and if they made it illegal and you took it anyway, should you need to spend 5+ years in fear of violence in a cell for that? I don't think so. That's not going to make you better at all, especially because the prison system is not made to rehabilitate you. Like we might call it, the Department of Corrections, but it's not a department. They don't correct shit. They perpetuate the same issue. Because if you go to jail and you have to check that box of have you been convicted of a felony,
Yep.
and how are you going to get a job again? Like most
Yep.
places will not take you as an employee again. And how are you going to make your money?
And that's why, to me, like that one move, right? Remove the drug war and remove all of the felonies associated with that. So then you don't have to check that box, right? So now you can apply for a job.
Yeah.
You can contribute again. We still would have to do a separate thing and fix redlining because you're probably still going back to a ghetto and you're probably still don't really even have jobs available in your area.
Yeah. We got a grocery store.
one problem at a time, right? So to me, like knowing more about it, even right, all all reading the new Jim Crow did for me, right, was further enforced, like give me an even deeper reason to think that there are problems with the drug war, like that this is not a thing. Because to me initially, right, as just the way I grew up, like this is stupid for us to be attacking people for a personal action, a thing that only affects them. And then now knowing more about what's actually happening as a result of it, and then after reading, so combining now my knowledge between Rise of the Warrior Cop and New Jim Crow, so not knowing that all that funding, like all of the weapons, all of the other stuff that these SWAT teams and these like over policing military like police forces are getting to comes from the drug war funding, and they're only doing the drug war stuff because it provides them with money and funding, and like also so like that stuff would just immediately go away.
Yeah,
if you take away the drug war and take away that drug funding.
So now I think you probably understand a little bit better of like why I don't like Rex Grossman, like of his whole like mindset. That's his name, right? Rex Grossman? The Rise of the Warrior Cop guy? Isn't that the guy?
No. So Grossman, Rise of the Warrior Cop. Sorry.
That's his name, right?
Rise of the Warrior Cop was written by Balco.
Oh, sorry. That's
you're talking about Grossman wrote On Killing.
Yeah.
And On Combat.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, okay, so his book On Combat, and again, the parts of it for the military are really good. Like, it helps us think through those
Grossman.
Combat situations. Yeah. Dave Grossman.
Yeah.
Those combat situations. And then On Killing is a really, really interesting read. It's completely separate from it. And if you haven't read On Killing specifically, I would recommend it.
I mean, I'm going to read them, but the problem that I have is like when he talks about these things. So obviously, when you talk about like a warrior, people that go to war, like as a military guy, that was my job,
right?
You know. But when you apply those same mentalities and you put them towards the police, it becomes a huge issue. And like the more and more you read into like these civil rights issues books, you'll see the problem of like him taking that warrior mentality and then applying it to the police.
So I'm going to defend him a little, right? So what I'm going to say is he has studied these concepts, and the research he did was primarily all from a military point of view, right?
Yes.
And then he was then hired to then give these speeches and train these people, and like he's got to make money, man. He's got a job. So he's got a skill set. He can train people to do it. And if right now what we as a nation are saying the police are supposed to do is execute a war on our own citizens about drugs, he's just training who we as a nation are saying are our warriors at home.
Yeah, but they're not. And they're not
They absolutely should not be.
Yeah.
But he's just doing a job, right?
I know he's doing a job, but I mean, there's a lot of people that did their job. We can go back to like, I don't want to take the ultimate comment, but there are people that did their jobs. I'm not going to say who.
Walks some people from a train
to
a concrete building.
It definitely starts with an N and ends with an I, and they did their jobs.
Yep. Like people were supposed to think, and that maybe he should have stood his ground and been like, I'm not doing that. But maybe he didn't have the same level of understanding, right? Like if you had asked me when I read those books prior to understanding more about this, like I wouldn't have thought that was weird, because what I knew the police were doing was needing to be a SWAT team and needing to go into these areas and being under attack. Like that's the way you understand it. And if you don't learn more about the situation and learn more about what's going on, and like, then he may honestly have been completely ignorant to anything other than his own level of understanding. Even as a retired lieutenant colonel, what's going on inside some of our own inner cities, he probably doesn't know much about.
Yeah, and that's like the weird thing. It's like, I think that, being a military member, like we have a lane that we should stick to. And we should probably stay in our lane. And yes, there's definitely a breadth of knowledge that comes from the military that we can definitely extend towards different things. But there's still a lane that you should probably stick to. And there are things to like you shouldn't apply the rules of war towards a more broader aspect because war it's very extreme, and I think that when you're in the military, you get desensitized to like what war actually means, because you're given these you're given like a more laxed view on morality.
Yeah.
And that's an issue I think that most people don't really want to talk about. But we really are. Like, when it comes to, like, if somebody attacking you, it doesn't matter who the fuck they are. If they're man, woman, or child. Like, you can fire back. And you can kill them. And there's, like, zero consequences. Right. But when it comes to, like, if your job is to protect your citizens, like, if literally on the side of your car, they drive around every day that says protect and serve, and you think that you're at war with your own citizens, there's a huge problem there. There needs to be a different... you need to change your mindset. You're not going to war with those people. You need to protect and serve them. And that should be the mindset. And, yeah, I don't like the... I don't like the warrior mindset because outside of actual war, not bullshit war, because people are going to get hurt and killed. And it's been happening over the past, 200 years. Because we have this, this mindset of just fuck the bad guy, kill him. But what did the person actually do? Is it warranted of taking his life? And nobody's even thinking of... Not nobody. Very few, not enough police officers are thinking about that.
Well, I mean, the easiest way to put it is that who are the people who would even be in a position to declare a war on drugs? They're not thinking about it, right? So they're not considering where that line should be. We declare wars on drugs. We declare wars on terror, which is not even a thing, an emotion. There's another one. There was like another recent. Oh, how about war on like this virus? Like even that doesn't make sense. Like
I'm the same way. Yeah, the war on coronavirus.
So both of us are like, I'm gonna wear my mask. Both of us are getting our vaccines. Like I'm totally for like treating this shit seriously, but treating something with concern and like the respect it deserves and like having an honest, open conversation about it has nothing to do with calling it a fucking war. And a war is a war. And we went over in another episode how a war can or can't be justified, and nothing about this has anything to do with justified war, right? There was no one else who attacked us. I mean, the virus kind of did.
Well, they're trying to say this is how they got away with it. Well, especially when former President Trump was there, he wanted to like place all the blame on China, but it's just like, I mean, I guess, man, but yes, it came from China more than likely, but I mean, did they directly attack us with the virus? No, because it went worldwide. So if they tried to direct it at just America, they definitely failed. Especially because look at how many of their citizens died. And when it comes to the China numbers, no, I don't believe like what they're saying, like how many people died. I totally don't believe it. But it doesn't take us off the hook for the deaths in America. And I think that's what most people don't really seem to get. It's like, yeah, blame China all you want, but our own ineptitude in America is causing American deaths. And it's over 600,000 American people have died because of our own ineptitude, because somebody doesn't want to put on a simple cloth mask. So you believe in war, in the war on the coronavirus, in the war on other things, but you're not willing to save a life by putting on a mask? Like, you don't even understand like what it's like to actually make a goddamn sacrifice in America. Putting on a cloth mask is not that big of a sacrifice. It might be a slight inconvenience, but not really. My 4-year-old can do it, and she's fine with it.
Yeah. So, vented.
Yeah, sorry, man. They make you so angry.
You needed it. I feel like you didn't get to finish last night. So,
yeah.
So to honestly, I feel like maybe we didn't actually even lay out what the book is saying is going on right now.
Hold on.
We went straight into it.
We did. Let's talk about it in about a minute and 30 seconds. I gotta go to the head.
Take it.
So we'll catch up. We're gonna talk about the premise. Well, you are the premise of the new Jim Crow.
Yeah, so I think we need to like at least summarize the concept, right? So there have been, according to the book, basically 3 eras of control within the history of the United States, to include when it was colony. Just put that out there too. Colonies, when it was just the colonies. For people, let's call it minorities, because then we can include, like you said, for some period of time, because it's a part of the dialogue, indentured servitudes, right? So that during the colony time, indentured servitude and slavery, 2 parts of the system of control for those who are minorities, in order to ensure cheap/free labor, right, for huge plantations and for parts of society in order to keep the economy the way they wanted it to be. So you have that period of time from slavery/indentured servitude to just slavery, because they managed to end indentured servitude in a way that makes it so that those who were the most marginalized, but as long as you weren't actually a slave, continue to be in a position where they're like, we're in a really bad spot, but at least we're not the bottom. And then they keep that mindset, so they keep voting to keep whatever that is in place. So then after the Civil War and slavery was abolished, it took... So there was the period during Reconstruction where the system was trying to figure itself out. So there weren't systems in place. There was like this flux. There was things happening. And then you end up with a lot of laws getting passed and that segregate people. So they specifically say, you're free, yes, but blacks and whites don't need to spend time together. It was specifically mentioned in most laws that it was black people, but some then started changing it to say coloreds, so that way it didn't specifically keep it from being other people of color. It's like, oh wait, that's a little too specific. Maybe we want to be more segregated.
Can I interject here and give like an example of how these laws sort of worked?
Oh yeah, I have a really one of my favorite ones, but continue.
Okay, it might be the same one. Maybe I have no idea, because I don't know what you're gonna say. But
let's see, you go.
One of the more classic ones is after slavery ended. Obviously, black people in the South were supposed to be free, right? But at the same time, you probably couldn't get a job at where you were working, right? Or where you were a slave, were you an enslaved person, so you had to leave there. And so they created a law of basically, it's sort of like loitering and not having a job. So they made a law where basically if you didn't have a job and you had nowhere to sleep or nowhere to live, then they would just throw you in jail immediately. So there was like no pass go. You just go to, if you couldn't prove that you had a job and you had somewhere to live, then they would just throw you in jail, which goes into basically you're a slave again, because that's literally what it was.
Yeah, because then you'd end up in work camps from prison, and
which was even actually worse, because when you go
right back on the exact same plantation you were working on before.
Well, no, sometimes it wouldn't be the exact same plant. Well, you could end up on the same plantation, but the thing was that during slavery you had some value. This is fucked up to say. You had value as a slave to the slave owner, but when you were convict leased, you had literally zero value. So they would just lease you to another person and they would just work you to death, and they didn't care if you died or not. So. Yeah, so it was sort of worse than slavery.
Yeah. So that was not my favorite. So there was, it was so ridiculous. That's how I find interest in this, that the lawmaking at the time was so rampant with people passing laws regarding, these are all Jim Crow laws is what they're called, right? This system of segregation between people in the country, that they honestly were basically kind of competing with each other who could write the most kind of ridiculous law that would put specific things in place. So there was a law passed in not just one state, several states, that's specifically outlawed for a colored person, and a white person to play chess together.
Wow, I didn't know that one.
Like,
yeah.
So you've got you just can't say like you have to specifically specify chess. Like you can't sit in the park and play chess together. Like,
well, I think one of the things is in that specific incident or law, it's to make people think that black people were dumb, and that minorities in general are dumber than white people. So why would you want to, like, if you lost to a minority at chess, you might get very angry because they're a minority and they're supposed to be dumber than you. So yeah, even to today, like if you look at like IQ tests and all those other things, like there's still people that are on the news today that will try to justify and say that people that are from Africa are stupider than people from Europe, and they will try to use very flowery words to make it seem like they're not racist assholes, but they're racist assholes. There's literally the main reason why at least some Europeans are smarter than other people, which isn't generally true at all, because there's people that are smart from every walk, every single country on the planet.
Yeah.
But one of the main reasons why in America, why minorities are not quote unquote traditionally as smart as other people is because you redlined us into districts where you put no money in our goddamn schools. So yeah, if you don't teach us anything, then yeah, we might be stupider than you when it comes to like actual traditional education in America. But if you gave us the same opportunities, then that is not going to be the case. Because if you look at like one of the number one groups of people in America that do like the highest amount of academic accolades, they're Nigerians or Asians, you know. So this whole like the white is the best, the Europeans are so smart, blah blah blah. It falls apart when you look at like actual like funding for schools and minorities from other countries when they come here and they happen to live in school districts that actually fund the school district.
I mean, just even that concept is fundamentally against a key learning concept that, you know, I've learned about years ago and pushing to make sure that people understand today, which is the growth mindset. You know, the mindset stuff by Carol Dweck?
No, I don't. Is that a book?
Yeah, so it's called Mindset. Carol Dweck, she spent 30 years doing research on mindset. And so there are only two kinds of mindsets, according to what she's talking about. There's the fixed mindset and then a growth mindset. So a fixed mindset believes that you have inherently a certain amount of skill at something, and if you can't do it, can't do it. So don't try it. Right?
Yeah.
So you would be faced with adversity and say, well, that's just something I'm not good at. That's fine. I'll just do things I'm good at. And a growth mindset person would say, I'm not good at that yet that's something I am interested in being good at, and it's something I want to do, and I find joy in that. So I'm going to work my ass off, and I'm going to get good at it.
Yeah.
And you can't believe that you can do that if you have a fixed mindset. You would just think, well, that's just not something I'm good at. I'm gonna stick to the things I'm good at. So I don't know. To me, there's no such, like, obviously a fixed mindset is an incorrect mindset.
Yes.
That's to me.
Yeah.
You have to have a growth mindset. Anybody can do anything they want to do. If that's something important to you, you want to be an amazing basketball player and you're 5'7" like me.
Like Muggsy Bogues did it.
Yeah. Bogues was only like 5'3", right?
Yeah, he was pretty short.
But you just become an amazing position player. You become an amazing shooter. Like, you shoot 3-pointers. You just develop your skill. And at some point, too, when we talk about mindset, it transitions to flow. And, like, you just become really good at getting into flow. And you can see everything everyone's doing. You're in flow the whole game. And you just crush them because you can anticipate their moves. You can see from their little movements, like, everything. And you just get that good. So you can choose to do that, right? But if you have a fixed mindset, you feel stuck. There's actually a girl that I went to high school with named Carol Riley, who's she's like one of the most advanced in the field of AI right now. It's pretty crazy. But she wrote a book about mindset for kids, like wrote a kid's book because to her it was so important. She wanted to make sure that there was lots of really cool opportunities for kids to read about it and learn from it.
And she lives in Mountain View, which is not far from me. She's Asian, right?
Yep.
I just looked it up. So I'm not.
Yeah, we went to Mountain View High School actually too, which is crazy.
Oh, that's hilarious because she lives in. I used to live in Mountain View.
California. Yeah. For a different place, but
Yeah.
went to Mountain View High School. So, did you see her book?
No, I literally just looked her up. I know she's in robotics, haptics, and skill learning. But
Yeah.
what is her book?
Because so like connecting the two, right? Connecting the two thoughts. So if you're involved in AI like she is, so she's very much focused on like advancing the way computer systems, intelligence stuff works, right? With robotics.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't develop an AI that should be able to analyze information, analyze the inputs, learn from those, and then become better at whatever it's learning about if you don't believe that you can learn and become better, right, at whatever it is you're learning. Like, so those two just obviously make sense together. So, I just made that connection. I honestly just made that. I was like, oh shoot, like she does AI and believes in growth mindset and wanted to write a book about it. I was like, you can't make a good AI unless you believe in growth mindset.
Yeah, I think that something I realized like recently, like one of the things that I realized when I was reading or listening to Can't Hurt Me is that I just got too comfortable in my career right now. And I've known this for like the past probably 2, maybe 3 years. I've gotten too comfortable. And I need to get uncomfortable again and like learn some new shit. So like I know like what I'm good at, I'm definitely good at. But I need to learn like new stuff. Like I never cared about like coding at all because I just didn't enjoy it. But I think I might actually like try to like learn some coding because I can do like one-liners and loops and stuff in Linux. But after that, I'm just like it's complicated. You know, I'm good at what I'm good at. But at the same time, it's like this can make my job easier. So why would I not do that? It's kind of dumb.
Where are you thinking about starting? Like what coding are you thinking? Like what specific language, I guess, do you think about starting with?
Well, I know I tried a little bit of Python earlier, but whatever makes my job easier, like really just learning how to like. So I have to go through like a lot of logs all the time. So if I learned how to like script and code better to like just go through logs faster of things that I normally look for in logs, I should probably do that. You know, because it make my job easier and make like my colleagues' jobs easier. And I know there's like a bunch of folks that I work with that have made a bunch of tools that have made our jobs easier. But it's like, why shouldn't I just do that? Like,
yeah, I would think either Visual Basic directly itself or C# probably would be one of the first two places to maybe start.
Okay.
That's where Logan. So it was so funny because he and I spent like several years learning C# together. But then when he did his first like computer languages class, he had to learn like C+ and C++. And he's like, shit.
Yeah.
I have to think dumber. Hold on. How would I have to write out this 15-line code thing? Because we realized at some point we do that 1,000 times in any code. Like, let's just make that a single line. And so like C# has a lot of those shortcuts. And so he's like, I hate this crap. So he and I literally sat one day for like 2 hours in his room trying to figure out how to break down what both he and I obviously knew what the code needed to be to like do the simple thing that we're trying to do. It's like, yeah, but how do you write that in C++? Like, let me look it up. Because it's at that, you know, in the C# point, you're like shortcut codes. You write this shorthand piece and it runs a full process. So that C#'s a good language. And then Visual Basic is like the output of it, which I think probably would help more with your logs.
Yeah, well, I mean, the logs that I go through, I don't know if it matters, but it's mostly Linux logs. And, like, now I have to get into, like, ESX logs, which is like VMware. But, yeah, I can still do the same thing and, like, extrapolate it in that. But it's just, like, I just need to... I'm good at my job,
So,
but I can make it easier. Like, why not just make it easier? You know.
yeah.
So yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's like
I
one of the
started.
things. Yeah.
I started with freaking original HTML. So I mean,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah, that's
Don't
great.
torture yourself.
Well, that's funny because like when I started doing my computer work, like when I was in the Marine Corps, like the main thing, the first thing that I had learned, like the complicated thing that I learned was like actually networking. So I started with like networking.
Yeah, like Cisco, just the regular Cisco interface
Yeah,
stuff.
Cisco, and then we had the what was that damn the DSID. You know, that's like
Yep.
probably super old by now. Um,
Same structural concept. They
yeah,
just replace it with newer components. But yeah.
yeah, and then I did that and went to like disaster recovery and civilian life, and then storage area
Yep.
networks and like all this stuff, and
Yep.
it's just like I just kept it running. But it's like, why don't I just make stuff kind of easier and like learn some things that I'm not comfortable with anymore? Because I'm super comfortable with storage, but I need to like refresh my mind and like get uncomfortable again.
Yeah, I had one of my instructors ask me the other day, "It's like, sir, how are you so smart?"
Yeah, just keep it going.
There's a lot of work. There's a
Yeah,
lot of work into it. He's like, I read a lot. It was funny because she asked the question actually like this, like, why are you so smart? Is it because you read a lot? Is it because you've got a lot of experience? Is it because you're always trying to learn new things? Is it because you talk to a lot of people and try to get the stories? I said, yes.
yeah, it's all those
And
things.
you have to do all those things, man. Like
Yeah,
you can't just focus on one. You have to keep learning. Just keep trying. Think about stuff. Like literally. So one of you know what? So I've created 4 rules. We need to get back on topic, but I will tell you my 4 rules. And I got these straight out of Powerful Teaching. It's not something I have created. So rule number 1 is take time to think.
yeah,
Right. So not just when I ask you a question, I want you to take 30 seconds and think about your answer, but every once in a while, like just stop and analyze what you're thinking about and think about your day and just take time to make connections between things. Because if it was important enough for you to remember at the end of the day, you probably should make a meaningful connection to that information. Anyways, and
no,
then
hold on, put a pin in that real quick. If you ever notice, like on this podcast, people that know me from the other podcast, like things kind of come back and forth sort of quicker. But on this podcast, there are definite pauses in conversation because either one of us has to like think about what we're gonna say, and like
we
actually think
did
about what the other person asked us. So yeah, just take a second to think.
what you know what that is an indicator of.
Well, I respect you, and when you ask me a question, like I need to like really think about like what you're asking me. It's not a surface level answer.
Usually not.
Yeah,
It means we're both good listeners.
try to be.
Yeah, because a lot of people are already the moment they finish whatever they're saying, they're already thinking about what they're planning to be the next thing they're going to say, and so they don't even hear what that person's response was to what they had to say. And a good listener, pays attention to what the other person says. We did like a tactical decision game sort of thing, but more on morals and moral compass stuff. And there was like they give this scenario: hey, this Marine's got a whole lot of personal issues going on, and what are some things that you could do to help that Marine out, right? And people gave some good examples, and I at some point finally was like, okay, they haven't said this yet. I want to mention this. I was like, so a lot of people think, or usually respond, which no one had yet, which was kind of I don't know, good or bad. Like, oh, we talked to them about their problems, right? Because you should have them talk about their problems. But when you say, I'm going to talk to them about their problems, you just said, I'm going to talk.
Yeah,
What you need to do is shut the fuck up and listen.
yeah,
You need to engage with them, but then, like, be an active listener. Like, learn how to get them to vent, because it's not about you talking that helps them. You don't need to tell them how to fix their life. In most cases, when people have a whole lot of shit going on, they have a pretty good idea what's going on with their life, and they know what they want to do. They just need to vent. They need to, like, get it out and fucking cry maybe even, right? And then they'll be like, okay, I'm ready to handle this thing. Thanks for all your help. And you're like, I didn't do shit but sit here and listen to you, bro. But cool. And a lot of these are all corporals and sergeants, right? It's like, guys, you guys are at the front line of this stuff. You need to learn to listen. Like, talk to them enough to get them to start talking and then shut up. Like, and just be there, you know? So,
Well, yeah, especially like in the military, because if somebody's coming to a superior to talk about their problems, it's like there's an additional barrier that I think that if you're a civilian listening to this podcast, like coming to like a superior in the military and talk about your issues, like that's a huge hurdle. And if somebody like will actually sit down and actually listen to you, like yeah, that's probably all that they need to do. Like for like a lot of people, it's like this person's listening to me. They might have some feedback, but just like getting it out there is a big deal. So I've been through like therapy, and it's just like me talking through my own issues with somebody else that I don't know. It's like that's a huge step.
So, and I forgot where we were.
Your second thing about, God damn it. Yeah, we went fucking.
Rules.
Yes, rules. You had 2 rules.
It's 4 rules. I'm not even
4 rules. Sorry, Jesus.
It was mostly related to that first one, which was take time to think. The other ones are like related to classroom stuff. It's be willing to get out of your comfort zone and ask questions. And you're not alone. Like ask your peers and your instructors for help. So like it's some basic stuff. But the first one was one I really wanted to hit on, which was take time to think, which was one of the things we were kind of talking about.
Yeah, and this comes back to New Jim Crow, because I think that a lot of people that when they hear about issues in America, when it comes to like racial issues, it's so easy for you to dismiss them, because if you have a high school education, you're not even aware of these issues like at all. And I don't fault people for not knowing it, but I do fault them to where if I say something that I know is true and they say that it's not true, then you're in the wrong. And if you don't want to do the research and like really look it up, then you're a fool to me. And I was a fool before probably. I think I started on like this whole journey maybe like a year and a half ago, where I was just like, man, like it's just fucked up. I was like, why is it messed up? Like why when I walk into certain places do people not welcome me the way that I should be welcomed, or they think that I don't belong there, or they will say certain things to me that would make me uncomfortable, but then I would like kind of ignore it. And that's when I started like looking stuff, and then like the stuff with I think it might have started with like Trayvon Martin like a couple years back, when I saw like the way that he was murdered.
Yes.
And then I saw like the blowback with certain people that were what I thought were my friends, and they were just like, yeah, he deserved to die. And I was just like, what? Like, could you imagine like some kid? Could you imagine walking up on some kid and then, as a grown ass man, getting into a fight with them and then shooting and killing them? You initiated the confrontation, and then because you were going to lose a fight, you shot and killed them as a grown man. Like, and that's when I was like, people think that what he did was correct. I'm like, no, like the guy that killed Trayvon Martin, like he was totally in the wrong. And then when he got off on like, he was found not guilty because it's bullshit stand your ground law. It's like, man, like what is? And then I was starting to like review like my life. That's when it started. And I was just like, this is like really messed up. And like seeing like former friends of mine just like, yeah, he deserved to die. He's a thug, blah, blah. I'm like, but nothing, like, how was he a thug? And then, like, the media going through his whole life. Oh, he got into a fight when he was in high school, or, he had marijuana in his system. I'm just, none of that matters. That was a kid. He wasn't even a man yet, and you snuffed his life out, and you're justifying why this grown man picked a fight with a kid and then lost the fight and then shot and killed him. And I was like, there's a serious problem with empathy in America. And that's when I started going down the journey of like figuring out like what is really wrong with America.
Well, and I think that's where she was going towards the end of the book, saying until we fix that problem, like the empathy piece, like understanding and caring for each other honestly and truly as like other humans, you're not going to fix it. Now,
Yep.
I agree, but I also think there are actionable items that we can fix today to like significantly improve a huge number of lives, and then let's work on this other problem. You know, I don't think I have a good analogy, but I'm pretty sure if I take a second, I can come up with one where it would explain the idea of like not saving someone right now because, well, long term we need to like save everyone. Like, well, like, can we not also fix this right now, and then let's work on that thing?
Yeah, people are very singular in issues. Like they're like, you can either do this or not that. It's like, no, you can literally do both.
Yeah.
Like there's no issue with like doing both. Are caring about both, you know?
That's where I look at it. I think there should totally be a way to fix the incarceration issue, because I don't think we actually got there yet. Hold on. So fix the issue with people in prison and then fix the society problem. Okay, so end of slavery goes to Jim Crow, which is where we talk about you end up with so many laws that are like completely weird and to the point of people not being able to play chess together, right?
Yeah.
So then civil rights movement, 1960s, LBJ, woo, right? It's our favorite. Go back and check out our best president ever. Someone did bring up a good contender. I can't remember what they said. I think it was FDR, and then.
That's who I thought you were gonna pick when we did that podcast. I thought you were gonna pick FDR like 100%, and I was very surprised when we both picked the same person.
So the only problem that I have with using FDR is that it's unfair to compare someone who got to do like 5 freaking terms or something crazy.
Yeah.
Because he didn't bother to follow the rules everybody else decided to follow, to the point that someone had to like say, dude, you're done. And we need a constitutional amendment to tell the next president, you're not doing that again.
Yeah.
So like he had so much time. So if you compare numbers, like it's impossible to scale him and his time and the influence he had in comparison to anybody else. So yeah, he did a lot. But I think that with especially the situation put in, LBJ got some stuff done. So civil rights movement and Jim Crow's dead. Like, hey, you can't pass laws that specifically restrict people from being able to do these things based on any of that stuff. So now that can't be explicitly stated in any laws. So then everybody's got to figure out the system, I say. Not everybody, because a lot of people were like, okay, fine. And she does cover in the book, which is really great, that a lot of people were honestly like good intentioned when doing all of these things that now looking at it seems stupid and terrible. You're like, why would you think that? But the amount of information, like we talked about being ignorant to something, right? The amount of information and the experience that they had told them that this is a group of people that needed our support and our care and our whatever. Like, this is what they thought. And so they feel like they're taking care of this group of people when what they're really doing is marginalizing them, right? And keeping them in their sphere, not allowing them to blossom and be their own. So we leave Jim Crow, but there's like a gap of period where the system has to, again, flex itself and figure out how do I still continue to keep those people marginalized. And then they start realizing and passing some laws for felons, and then start the drug war, right? And so then the drug war specifically then targets drug use as a felony, puts people in prison for doing drugs, being around drugs, having anything to do with drugs, imprisoning people that are near people who saw drugs, right? Like, it's insane. And then putting a lot of money behind it, and then basically taking it from, and what's really interesting, I think I learned out of it too, was like, it's not just about the prison time. So say mandatory minimum for whatever that drug use was 5 years. So you're going to spend 5 fucking years in prison marked as a felon, and then you get out and you're on probation. So for the whole time you're on probation, you're also in a marginalized status, and you will forever be marked as a felon because of the felony. And so you are forever basically not able to vote. You're a secondary citizen. Like we basically changed terminology, right? So we stopped saying slave, we stopped saying colored, because those are the things we used to then marginalize those people, and instead we just say felon. So are there felons who should be marginalized? Yes, but it shouldn't be for this mass system that we're able to put out there for like regular shit everybody does, and then target them so that we can then call them felons and keep them from voting and keep them from being able to participate in society. So the system now that is being used to keep people marginalized is mass incarceration. So that's the term she uses to define the new Jim Crow. Is that a good summary?
Yes, it is a good summary, and I'll make a couple of notes on there. So when we talk about the people that have been mass incarcerated, this is from a 2019 study from the JEC, and basically the amount of felons we have in America exceeds 24 million people as of 2019. So these are people that have had their rights stripped away. Like, it doesn't matter what they did. And yes, you might want to say, oh, when I say people that are in jail are felons, most people think that felons are like violent criminals. The vast majority of people in jail are not violent criminals. The vast majority of them are people that have committed some sort of drug crime.
Yeah.
And to me, like, I don't care. Like I said before, if you want to get high, I don't care. Just don't commit like a violent crime after that, or take care of your kids, shit like that. Like take care of your life. There's been so many people that I know. Like, I drink almost daily, and I take a break in October, and for sober October. But for the vast majority of the time, like I drink. That's something I enjoy to do. But if it was illegal, I'd be in jail as well. And I think a lot of people in America, they do some sort of drug. But what if the drug that you did put you in jail?
Yeah. When is Oktoberfest?
Obviously it's not October, but yeah.
It's not. It's in September most of the time, isn't it?
Well, I guess it depends. Well, actually, fuck. I guess I don't know. If you say it's in September, maybe I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure it's in October.
I think it's originally in September, or started happening in September. So do you take October off from drinking?
Of pretty much every drug except for maybe caffeine. So
I didn't ask for additional specifics.
That alludes to things.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
So, because I would think, like, if Oktoberfest was in October, like, holy shit, as much as we're interested in beer, both of us, like, you would want to have a beer in Oktoberfest.
I could also pick a different month, but sober October rhymes, so
It does.
So yeah, I try to stop, except for like I think melatonin is like one of the ones that I usually do in October because I need sleeping for me is difficult.
Yeah.
So I take melatonin, but I think maybe this year I'll probably try not to take melatonin, and I might just have to fucking work out a lot. I have to work out a lot.
Did you drop no BHB either, or just literally no supplements, no anything?
I do take supplements because I'm old. So yeah.
You're like, I'm not gonna take joint supplements. Like, dude, your knees are gonna hurt all month. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I definitely take. I take my normal supplements right now. It's I take Zeflamed for my joints. I take D3 because I'm black and I don't absorb the sunlight as much, and I have depression. I take a general supplement from Ritual, and what was the last one? Oh, I take a nootropic from Alpha Brain from On It, and I think that's it. I used to take a whole bunch more. When I was bodybuilding, I took way more. I was taking upwards of 50 plus pills a day.
Not to mention how many powders and drinks and
Yeah.
other things. Yeah, because I was doing all that stuff.
And BHB and what was the other one that comes with amino acids, and some other shit. But yeah.
Did I tell you my commanding officer the other day told me I look like a little boy now?
Are you serious?
Yeah, because like I got here and I was like way bigger. I was definitely heavier. Like I definitely was more kind of like jacked. Like I was definitely bigger muscles, but also way heavier, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of made it a goal, over the last year or so to slim down,
Yeah.
and get lean. And so he's like, saw me the other day. Was like, did you lose weight? You're like, you slimming up? I was like, yeah, I've lost probably about 40 pounds. He's like, because you were like Jack, you got here, right? I was like, yeah, it was pretty big. He's like, you look kind of like a little boy now. I was like,
wow.
I would assume, I would assume the gray hair and the glasses would kind of not give you that impression, but yeah, okay. I was like, well, no, I'm just mean. I was like, I understand your point, and it's not. We have a pretty good relationship. He was joking around with me. You're like, you're losing a lot of weight. I'm like, hey, look, that's what the Marine Corps wants me to be, apparently, because you're telling me I'm overweight. So maybe you should fix Marine Corps.
Well, and it's also, as you age, you should probably lean out. Like the extra muscle, like, yeah, it looks cool, but like it's a burden on your body. I feel. I talk about The Rock all the time. Well, not all the time. I talk about The Rock all the time with my girlfriend, right? My partner. I'm just like, The Rock is in really good shape, but the guy is pushing age. Like he needs to lean the fuck out, or he's gonna die early. And she's just like, well, I'm like, yeah, like you're not. When I talk about people that are overweight, it's the same people that have like 80, 100 plus pounds of muscle on them. They're overweight too. You still have to pump blood through all those fucking blood vessels. And your body is not designed to keep up that sort of physique for that long. And as you age, you should understand that.
And your joints have to carry that weight around.
Yeah.
Like your knees and your feet and your ankles are going to suffer from you carrying that weight around. And again, as long as there's a trade-off, like you have a purpose for that weight, then you're probably fine. And I know that, The Rock, like, Dwayne Johnson keeps himself in very good shape. So, like, I'm sure he's taking care of his joints, he's eating all the right stuff, but, like, at some point, it's not going to matter.
One thing I'll leave a sort of caveat. Do you think The Rock can touch his toes?
No.
So he's not in good. To me, he's not in good shape.
Yeah. he might be able to. I bet he does yoga.
I don't think he does. I do yoga a lot. I'm just saying, I can touch my fucking toes.
Shoot, I could touch my toes on a day when I did 100 deadlifts the day before.
Nice. That's like mobility as you age. Mobility should be your shit.
So sore the last 2 days.
Yeah.
We did. Oh, actually, I didn't tell you yet. So we did on Monday. We did 10 sets of 10 deadlifts at 135 with 100-meter run in between each one. So you do 10 deadlifts, 135, 100 meters back. 10 deadlifts, like you do as fast as you can. You gotta do 10 sets. So it's 100 deadlifts.
Yeah.
At 135. 135 is not hard to deadlift. I can deadlift 405.
It's the frequency, though. Yeah.
That's a lot of reps. Yeah. So, like, the next day I was like, oof, my knee kind of hurts. And, like, I'm tighter than I've been in a while. Like, whew, that was a good challenge. And then we got in a pool that same day and did a memorial workout for the 13 service members that died in Afghanistan. And we did 13 laps at the pool. That's 100 meters each, so that's 1,300 meters.
That's a lot, yeah.
Each 100 meter, so each lap, you do 13 gutter ups. So it's like a pull up. So you go under the water, holding onto the edge of the pool, pull yourself up, and then muscle up, like all the way up out of the pool, right? So you go from pulling to pushing.
Yeah.
So gutter ups, 13 of those. Get out of the pool on the last one, right? Do 13 air squats, and then do 13 crunches, and then start your next lap and do that 13 times. So I was pretty tired, and I did mine obviously like in camis. So.
No, that is a lot. One of the things that like it's crazy for me is like when I do. So obviously, like right now, I'm cycling focused for like most of my workouts.
And you were slaying the cycle.
Yeah, and yoga. Like I do cycling and yoga. So that's my comfort zones is cycling and yoga.
Yeah.
But the other day I was asking my little one, my 4-year-old, almost 5. I was like, okay, we're gonna do like a workout together. Like, what do you want to do? Because we haven't worked out in a while. We done walks and stuff, which is fine. But we're gonna do like a Peloton workout. And I was like, all right, let's just do a longer one. Because like we usually do like a bunch of like 5-minute ones or 10-minute ones together. Like we'll just do like a 30-minute one and like let's see how this goes, like a family workout. So she did really well. She took like very few breaks. And I did the whole thing, and the next day my legs were like, "What did you just do?" I'm like, "Motherfucker, I cycle all the time. Like, why are you sore?" Like, what is?
And
But
that one extra set, like.
it's different sorts of because my body's used to like cycling, not like
Yeah.
squats and jumping and burpees and you know.
I'll tell you what. Do you ever do plyo?
I used to, yeah, with like P90X, yeah.
Yeah, I never hurt so much, and I was weightlifting all the time at the time.
Yeah.
The day I did plyo, like the next day, I'm like, why am I so sore?
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Tearing new muscles.
So, back on subject. Where are we at?
So, new Jim Crow. The things that like really opened my eyes was like realizing that America has been so enamored and used to enslaving. I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm not sorry. It's just enslaving people and using their cheap labor or free labor for the betterment of America. And it's happening today, and that most Americans don't realize this. So when people go, like, when I talk about today, and I say that people are still slaves today in America, and are like, no, they're not. I'm like, yes, they are. They're still slaves today. When they go to jail, they force them to work jobs for corporations like McDonald's and Walmart and a bunch of other companies out there. You can look it up. They force them to work for these corporations for pennies on the dollar. And the corporations are making money, they're making profit off of their labor because they're in jail. And it's like, listen, if you're in jail, you're supposed to be corrected. You're not supposed to be a money-making machine for a corporation. It should be illegal, but it's not illegal. And when you bring it up, people are like so mad. Oh, well, they're in jail. They committed a crime. What crime did they likely commit? First of all, you don't even care. I know you don't care. But if you looked it up, it's not what you think it is. It's not like some violent crime. Like, yes, there are a lot of people in jail for violent crimes, but the vast majority of them are not in jail for violent crimes. And when I bring that up, people are they shut down. They don't want to look up the actual statistics. The stats are, it's mostly for drug crimes. It's a crime upon themselves. And it's ridiculous.
I'm trying to think of, like, a close enough, like, I guess something that's not so stupid but I want it to be stupid, of an example to say if suddenly we made something illegal, like, that you would look at it and go, well, they shouldn't be doing that because it's a law. But then you'd be like, well, it's still realistic enough to think that it would happen, right? Because if I said, like, if suddenly you couldn't wear low-top sneakers and that's illegal, you're just going to go to prison, and suddenly everybody who does so is a felon, like...
Well, I don't wear low-top sneakers. Actually, I am. But that's the thing, though, is that people will be like, well, I don't do it, so fuck them.
Fuck them, yeah. But why is there something wrong with that? Like, what is wrong with that choice for them to do so personally? So the one counterpoint to drug use, right, and it still being a thing that is detrimental to their personal health and their own actions. So for one, like, we recently shifted the laws, right, to be 21 years old before you can smoke or drink. So we moved smoking from 18 to 21.
In
2 years ago?
Some spots in California, yes. Not
That's
not
federal law now.
Is a federal law for 21? Oh,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah.
I'm old. We're old. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is now 21 is the federal law.
Wait, are you talking about smoking tobacco or smoking cannabis?
Tobacco?
Really?
Yes.
I thought it was just in, like, San Francisco. But okay, that's fine.
Federal law, 21 years old.
Wow.
Like, dudes in Okinawa are like, what?
Yeah.
Anyways, so totally different topic, maybe its whole own podcast. I don't care what that law is. If you can sign up to join the military and fight and die for your country, you should be able to do any of the things that are legal for someone who's older. So maybe that's its own subject. But if we're saying because of developmental concerns, right? So there's pretty good research shows you don't really stop growing or stop developing until later. So maybe we don't want to allow people to use things that would limit their growth and limit their development, potentially making them less capable of contributing to society. We don't want to say it's an okay thing until they're 21, right? That's why they made those changes.
Okay.
But then
we're gonna come back to that in a second. But okay.
And that might need to be its own as well. That bothers the shit out of me. But you're totally developed well enough to vote.
Yeah. And fight for the country. Yeah.
Right. You're competent enough to make that decision. Anyways, I think that then those others should be able to be there. But there's the concern that once you go into more like serious ones, probably beyond marijuana, like that's probably not one that people are talking about. We talk about when you get involved with cocaine, you get involved with heroin, you get involved with methamphetamines, right? So like something that's a lot harder. Like you're really pushing kind of the limits of what your body can handle. That you probably have something beyond a criminal issue. You have a psychological issue. You have a mental health issue that is probably a reason you're seeking this feeling, a reason that you're seeking this activity, right? And rather than prosecuting it as a criminal act, we should be looking at it as a mental health issue. Like, can we provide them with support and counseling, and how do we get them from where they are now to a place where they understand themselves better and understand why they seek that, and maybe could get them away from this artificial thing that potentially damages their body and towards something helpful and positive and good for themselves and maybe better self-aware.
Okay, so 2 points. The
Yes.
first one was if you're thinking about like developmental issues with people. So one of my main points is if you talk about developmental issues, yes, study shows that when you're 25 years old, especially as a male, that's when you should be developmentally ready to do whatever. But at the same time, where's our metrics to see if you're developmentally able to do anything at 25 years old? We have literally zero. There's zero metrics to show that at 25 years old, you're good to go. So I don't like that. It's not your argument. It's like, it's society's argument.
Yeah.
And it's a shitty argument because we have zero, there's literally no like bar when you hit 25 that says that, oh, you're good to go. Like it doesn't exist. So why do we have that there? You can make shitty decisions when you're 40.
It's because people are done with college and they're done making all those dumb decisions. So like, oh, they must have got smarter. Or something.
No, I mean, I never went to college, but I'm also kind of half retarded. So there's that. And there was something else that you said, God damn it, like a couple seconds ago. Right before I started talking. And I forgot what it was.
While you get there. So maybe part of it too is like, and this was a thought I had a couple days ago when I was thinking about the fact that we're moving these ages older, is like, is this a slow progression towards reducing the overall voting population, right? Like, are we trying to take away from enfranchisement for a specific like age group for those who are eligible, right? So let's say even though we're already limiting those who can vote, even for those who aren't felons already, what if we make it so that they can't vote until they're 21 or 25? Like keep creeping that age a little bit older. We start making that voting population smaller, making them older, So I was like, are they working on that? Like, is this a slow roll, like future plan kind of concept?
Yeah, that's a plan that I don't know that I really appreciate because I had different needs when I was in my 20s than in my 40s. And I think that people in their 20s, they should vote for the needs that they have now. Because they don't know the needs that they're going to have when they're 40. And so and I think that that's a huge issue when it comes to like generational shifts, is that we forget that when we were in our 20s, we had different needs. We just think about like right now, like what we need right now. I'm like, yeah, we definitely have different needs than when we were in our 20s, but the people in their 20s, they still need to exist with the needs that they have then, or like at their right now. And I think it is very ambivalent of us older folks to like poo poo on them because they're younger than us. And yeah, I get it. Yeah, definitely. A lot of us have, more, some of us have more knowledge than them. But a lot of us, we made really crappy decisions with our lives. And now we're going to look upon them like they're not going to make bad decisions. I think the better route to go is to maybe try to mentor them if they even want it. And if they don't want it, then it's fine. Because we didn't want it when we were in our 20s, did we? Be honest with yourself. When you're in your 20s, how much do you listen to your parents? When you were in your teenage years, how much do you listen to your parents?
None.
Yeah. So give them the same rights that you had when you were at that age. And I'm saying that because I have, it's going to get kind of messed up. My 18-year-old daughter didn't call me on my birthday for the first time ever. Usually she's with me on my birthday. She didn't call me.
Mm-hmm.
She called me like 2 days ago, maybe. We talked. She didn't even realize that she forgot my birthday. And that's like typical self-centered teenage shit.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I didn't call her out. I didn't even mention it. That, hey, my birthday was, a couple weeks ago. You didn't call me. It was whatever,
Better man than me. My birthday's coming up, and I'm thinking, he ain't gonna call.
I hope he does call. All right?
I hope he does too. He might. He's a good dude, but like, yeah, if he didn't, next time he did talk to me, I'd be like, oh, now you want to fucking talk to me, huh?
I'm trying
You need something? You need something? What's going on?
I know, man. I was thinking the same way, and I was like, it'd be so easy for me to do that, but it's like, would it help our relationship or like distance us further?
Yeah. All right.
So
because of this conversation, I'll probably now have to force myself to be.
But he's probably gonna call you, so you'll be all right.
Huh?
He's probably gonna call you.
Maybe. I'll be building an arcade cabinet and I won't answer.
Yeah, these are things like as we get older, like we don't think about. Same thing with like when I was younger. Getting back to on topic is like all the issues that I had to deal with like racism throughout my entire life. I was just like, you know what, this is just the way shit is. I remember like the first time I really realized like racism in America was like when I was in like early grade school. And I got treated differently than the other kids. When I say other kids, I mean like white kids. When I was in elementary school. And I got harsher punishments for anything that I did. I got suspended way quicker. They failed me in the first grade, even though I had passing grades. They never gave me any reason why. They just failed me, even though I passed. And that's when I didn't really care about school anymore. That's when I went down my own path. And I was like, I'm just going to figure it out on my own. But there was like a whole bunch of issues, even like past, school and even in the Marine Corps. Like I've seen like a lot of like veteran Marines and even like Marines that are in the Marine Corps talk about like, racism. And they're like, well, there's no racism in the Marine Corps. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like they always say, like when I see people say that, it's mainly white dudes that say, there's only green Marines. I'm like, no, you only heard the first part of the statement that I heard. When I was in boot camp, they said, there's no racism in the Marine Corps. There's only green Marines and dark green Marines. Did you just nod your head? Yeah. I'm not the only fucking person that heard this shit. All right? So if you want to talk about there's no racism in the Marine Corps, what I just said, if it doesn't click with you, then you don't get it. Like we were the other.
There's another other, and luckily, I mean, so some of those.
You're talking about women. That's the other. So yeah.
Luckily, a lot of those like terms are gone. Like you can't say that shit no And again, while that seems like it's a superficial thing to say, don't say that, right? It's not. What we say becomes what we do.
Yep.
What we say becomes how we think. So if we say out loud to each other, don't say that. That's not right. We shouldn't think that way. Eventually, it becomes a part of you too, right? I've always felt that people are who they are, and based on their actions, not based on anything else. But that doesn't mean institutions can keep that from being a part of it when certain people do feel that way, right? Especially if that person's responsible for an organization or responsible for people, and they influence how it is that they think and act. So I do feel like there's, much like the country, much like the United States, the goal, the intention, the purpose, all of the what am I trying to say? What you want it to be is this thing. What you say that it is this thing. But there's still a long way to get there. Having a goal, having an objective, having a thing you want to be, doesn't make that what you are. But that's still pretty noble. I want to try to get to that thing.
Yeah.
How do we get there? But then a lot of people aren't willing to put the work in to get there.
Well, and they also don't understand that that's even an issue. So for most people that when I bring up when they say, people will say, I just said in the beginning, when I was just saying, was they remember the first part of the statement. There's only Green Marines, but most people that aren't a minority group in America, that's all they heard the other part too, and dark Green Marines, and it's just most of the Marines that I talk to, and people the vets that I know, they just they're oblivious to these things. They didn't see any of the racial issues that occurred in the Marine Corps, in the military in general. It's yeah, there is really still an issue. If you look at meritorious boards, there was there was a change in the Marine Corps. I think it was last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, where they stopped putting pictures of the person that was on the board, right?
Yeah.
And then when I went into the vet groups that I'm a part of, they got mad about that. And I'm just do you not realize that the Marine Corps sees that there's an issue when they see somebody that is in a certain way, that their unconscious bias will disqualify the person from being on a meritorious board, and that doesn't even really occur in their brains.
No, it's not a conscious act
because it doesn't apply to them, and that's the issue.
So, yeah. So I hate to tell you this, but it's been 1 year of actual boards that have occurred for promotions since the decision was made to no longer allow the boards to see photos, right? So you don't see a photo of the person. Yet, diversity amongst promotion selection actually got worse.
I'm not surprised.
So and he doesn't listen to this podcast. If anybody does who is in the Marine Corps and wants to talk to me about it, I fully intended to write General Williamson an email. He was my commanding officer at communications company when I was a sergeant and a staff sergeant. I just have not had time because it hasn't been high enough on the priority list of stuff that happens every day, unfortunately. Where he's concerned about that, which is rightfully so, right? Hey, we made a change, and the change has shown results in the opposite direction of what we were hoping to try to achieve, right? So maybe we need to undo that change. What I wanted to write him about, and if he's listening or anybody who works for him is listening, then let him know this is me saying this, that there are other things about it that still allow bias to seep in. So one option would be completely removing names, assigning numbers, right?
Yeah.
You can see names and you can have a bias whether you know it or not. So you'd have to remove the names to honestly even be able to completely remove bias. Also, 1 year's worth of analysis is not enough time to honestly review the data and say that this is or isn't a trend. It's 1 year. There's not enough time to say this made a positive or a negative impact. And that I do have a master's degree in human resource management, and like current public, like commercial, civilian company standards right now is to do that, is to remove photos, remove names for promotions, for job selections, for all these things. You have to just remove that, and to go backwards is not the way we should go. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I totally, like, I was thinking as you were talking, I was like, it's going to be names. Because it's easy to tell somebody that's the other if, you know, the name isn't Jack or, you know, whatever. Like, just pick a white name, whatever. Like, that's really a thing. And it comes down to, like, unconscious bias. Sometimes it's a conscious bias, to be honest. Like, with a lot of people probably that don't want to admit it. But, yeah, it's still there, and it still pervades our military. And this gets back to the point of, like, you know, of the new Jim Crow, is that we're still seen as the other, and we're not the other. Like, we've literally been here as long as, you know, Europeans have, and we've helped build this country, and we're still getting billed as the other, as something lesser than, and it's really disgusting. And to see all these excuses from people that are high ranking in the military and high ranking in the civilian government give all these same bullshit excuses that go back to, like, you know, the slave days, and they don't, whether they realize it or not is irrelevant, but they're using the same words, they're using the same phrases, and they're using the same bullshit excuses, and it's to the detriment of this country. Like, we could be a better society if we treated each other better as equals, and we're not. And it's not even just, even beyond, you know, new Jim Crow, it comes down to women as well. I just need to bring up real quick the insane abortion laws that, I don't know where Papa Bear stands on this, so maybe he's gonna say something back, we could have a discussion, I have no idea. But, like, the abortion laws that just got passed down in Texas are draconian and fucking insane. Because right now in Texas, if you get raped as a 13-year-old girl, you have to carry, and after 6 weeks, you know, maybe you didn't get your fucking period yet at 13 years old, and you didn't know if you missed your period at 6 weeks. Even if you're a woman, at 6 weeks you could just be late. You know, and they have these draconian laws in Texas to where you have to carry the child to term. And this is just removing rights away from women, much the same way that rights have been removed from minorities, you know, and women for the past, you know, 400 fucking years. And I don't like the trend of the America. I almost feel like, honestly, I feel like the America that I was sold as a kid never really fucking existed. And
I can understand feeling that way. Yeah.
Go ahead. Come on in, man.
So on the actual topic, like, or the piece that you brought up, I personally, you know, don't agree with abortion, right? But that has nothing to do with a political position on it, which is that I think people need to have their own choice. I can't decide what someone else's right looks like. I can't decide a law that would be able to cover every situation for this particular topic. So it's unfair to think that I could do that, right? But the only thing I would say is I would like it to be legalized for those who want to do so, but then that someone should receive counseling before they make that decision, right? To understand the impact it will have on their life, either decision, like either way they go, right? Because a lot of times I think what we have is we have a concern that people will make a bad choice, right? So we tell them, you don't have that choice. Instead of educating them about the options and what the outcomes of both will be, both short-term and long-term. And if we can inform someone and let them make an informed decision, they can make that choice. So if,
well, hold on,
say,
sorry,
yeah.
real quick. I think it just, because I know that if there's a woman listening, especially if people that I know, if they listen to this, there's gonna be like red flags. I think that the issue is, yeah, if you can get more informed, yeah, that's probably the way to go. If it was consensual, during the conception of the baby, but there's times to where it's not consensual. That happens in America more than probably both of us want to admit. To where if somebody wants to get an abortion, I don't think that somebody should be sat down and be like, hey, are you really sure that, you want to do this? Do you understand the consequences? Because it's going to bring them to like a super dark place, man.
Yeah, so I guess I mean, like, it shouldn't be an effort to convince them not to.
Okay.
To be clear, right? But that, so, God, it's going to get real personal. So, my mom, when she was 16, was raped and became pregnant as a result of that. And, made the decision to keep that child because she knew she couldn't personally deal with the idea of knowing that she had been responsible for killing the baby that she was carrying, regardless of the situation. So she puts the child up for adoption. She couldn't handle being able to raise that child. Like, she's like, there's no way I can do that.
Yeah.
But her personal, she had an understanding. She spoke with her mother. She understood enough about herself and the situation to make that decision herself. And that's what I wouldn't want, is that, especially a young woman like that who maybe hadn't even considered the idea of, like, how are you going to feel afterwards? Have you thought about it? Like, I'm not telling you need to feel one way or another about it, but I need you to think about it and understand that you will, have to live with that decision. Whatever decision you make in the next 24 or 48 hours, however long you take to decide, that you will have to live with that decision for the rest of your life. And just take some time to think. We talked about for this podcast. Take time to think about it. Like, I'm not telling you need to decide one way or the other. Here are the outcomes based on whichever decision you choose, but you have to live with those choices. And especially in the young situation, like, they may not even have an understanding of what's going on. And I think we owe those people as a society the information as to what their decision's going to cause them for the rest of their life. They may not even be thinking about the fact that might traumatize them for the rest of their life.
Yeah, I don't know, because I've never been in this situation, but I would think that today that they would likely talk about, options to an abortion if they went to the, obviously I've adopted, and I know my youngest daughter's birth mother's situation, and so she obviously decided to keep the baby to term, and then we adopted her daughter. So I understand like both sides of that, but I think that in this day and age, I would at least hope that they would talk about some sort of options when it came to that. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think that it should be illegal. Like, I think it should still be like I think we both consensus on that, right? It should be the woman's decision.
Yes.
Before a certain, I guess, date. And what that date is in the pregnancy is probably negotiable, but it's definitely not 6 weeks. Because, I mean, that's not even showing yet.
Yeah, I would say, like, it's hard. That's a really hard line to draw.
Yeah.
Because initially I kind of go towards, as long as it's not going to be dangerous for the mother, right, who's making the decision.
Yeah.
But at some point we have to agree that, like, that child is completely a viable life now and could come out of the mother and live.
Yeah. But even then, even with that knowledge, there's still caveats.
Yeah.
Like, if you knew, like, your child was going to need to have, like, a lot of needs, and you just were not I can't even say that. That's like it's just a decision I can't make as a man. Like if the kid need to have like a lot of needs, like could you end it at any point? And I'm not comfortable on saying yes or no on any of that. So that it comes down to the woman. So yeah, I think that's what it should always come down to. For me, is the woman.
Yeah, I agreed. I don't understand enough about what's going on in that situation to be able to like contribute to that decision. So I've said a couple times like I am here for you. I am 100% on board with whatever decision you make, and I will support you whichever way you want to go with it. But like I'm not going to try to influence your decision. I will just be here to support whatever it is that you want to do.
That's what's interesting. So when you had your first kid, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I'm going to assume the answers because I know my answers. Was your first kid planned?
Logan?
Yes.
Who is 19 years old now?
Mm-hmm.
No.
And what happened when your now wife said that she was pregnant? What was the first thing you said to her? If you can remember.
Yeah, I probably don't remember. I think so. We both. It was very fast for one, and we were still so very much like at the very early newlywed passion.
Oh, you were married.
Desperately in love state, huh?
That you were married?
Yeah.
That's great.
And so it was definitely a like, okay, cool, kind of thing. Like that wasn't where we expected to go, but here's where we are, and we were good with it. At no point did we ever discuss abortion, though.
Awesome. So, I was not married when my oldest daughter, who's almost 19 now, we were dating. We were dating for a little bit, and I remember when she told me that she was pregnant, and I was like, all right, well, what do you want to do? And I think that most people, when they hear that question from a guy, they think about it like the wrong sort of way.
Yeah.
Like when I said like, what do you want to do? I meant like literally, what do you want to do? Because it's like outside of my hands. Like I have like literally zero input on like what you are going to decide to do. So if you want to have a kid, that means we're going to have a kid. So we have to like change plans. But if you want to do something else, then that's your decision too. Like I was down for, either or, because it's her body. And I hear like a lot of people make fun of men that ask that question as if it was like some negative thing, but it's like it's not a negative thing in my mind, because like at least from my aspect, like I was literally asking like, what do you want to do? Because I'm not willing to take control or even trying to say that I have any control over your body. So if you want to have a child, I'll be there for you and the child. But if you don't, then I'll be there for you with the aftermath. And I think just a lot of men. I guess maybe I'm altruistic, and other men might not think like. So I'm just speaking from my point of view. Other men might not think this way, but for me, it was just like, yeah, it's either yay or nay, and I'm with you for both. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, so like, some of it is how we say what we say. And if and you're right, there are some guys who would be completely attempting to be influencing the decision.
Yeah.
By asking that question. So ideally, in my head, it's start with the like, I am not trying to like just be upfront, right? Like I'm not trying to say this one way or the other. I want you to know whatever ends up happening, I'm here for you. Like this doesn't have anything to do with our relationship. So whatever you want to do, like so starting it off with a like, I'm letting that be upfront. Like I'm not trying to control this situation that I have no control over. Because I think, although I mean, shit, as I say it, like that could be trying to be manipulative too.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you got to be like real careful. especially like obviously back then I was in like my early 20s, so
Yes.
I wasn't
Has to be
very intelligent.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's all good. That was like we went deep. We were also way over time. We tried to
Yeah.
get this to 2 hours.
We are, and I think we're at the end of it. We may need to still cover the topic at some point again, but at least maybe I feel like we covered something that most people don't think about or talk about, which is kind of what we go for.
Yes, and so a statistic that I want people to look up is when it comes to like mass incarceration, is how many people are actually incarcerated today, and how many people are actually felons today. And I think that people will be surprised if you look up the numbers. Um, there's a cool song, I think it's Legend Has It, by Run the Jewels, and the music video shows like a timeline and like kind of like the later half of the video of like the prison population over the decades. And when it gets to like, it goes from like, I think it's like the 60s to the 70s to the 80s, then the 90s, then the 2000s. It's just like, when it gets to like the 80s, it just goes, and it's incredible. You know, there's more people that are enslaved today that were slaves during the, actual slave days.
Yeah.
And it's really disgusting, and people just they label them as others because of some insignificant crime they did towards nobody else but themselves, most of them, and we just throw them away.
Which other people right across town are also probably doing.
They're definitely doing. So when people talk about like ghettos in America, ghettos are mostly over policed, and this is by design. And if you are a white American, please let me know if you went to school where nobody did any sorts of drugs. If you didn't know who the drug dealer was in your school, if you never got high with anybody else in your school. And just imagine in that same vein where you had a bunch of police, where if you had any sort of paraphernalia on you, they would take your body, charge you as an adult, and throw you in a jail full of grown men and grown women. Just imagine that, just because of where you happen to live. And that's the way America is today in 2021. It hasn't really changed.
So on that very happy note, say bye. Talk to y'all later.
Later. Okay, now we're recording. Yeah, sorry. People kind of missed some stuff as we were talking. Now the audio's going too. We're just talking about different microphones. Papa Bear has a different microphone setup than what I'm used to.
Yeah, so this is the same mic I usually use when set up at the other location, but I have it set up in a way so that it kind of comes over the top, and I just usually put it out of the way right here. So you don't ever even see a microphone at all.
But you definitely sound further. Maybe I'll turn my volume up. But it gets to a point if I turn my side up, then it gets like this weird like wah 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 thing.
You try to see if I can do that and make it more directional.
Yeah,
is that gonna work better?
Might work better. But usually with these sorts of mics, it's usually like a little. There's a one side that picks it up. But obviously, I don't know exactly what mic you have though. So.
Yeah, on the mic itself, there's not a thing. You're talking about there should be like a mark.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna pull my mic out. Can I mute myself? Actually, maybe I don't have to. Hold on. Oh, that's fucking loud. You see that thing?
Yeah.
Right there? Yeah. Oh, sorry. If y'all are listening to this or watching it,
I probably just did it too.
Yeah. If I touch it, then it gets kind of crazy.
There's the name there, so maybe the spot where the name is would probably be the goal. Let's do that.
Yeah. Because usually these mics are definitely directional. Usually.
Okay. Let me open this up, sorry.
It's all good. You just gotta pinch it, right? Pinch the two little side things.
Pinch?
Yeah. There you go.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Maybe if I said
Yeah,
that like
that's
that,
better.
that's probably better.
Yes.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.